Hello and welcome to Why HubSpot Provides the Best Marketing Solution for Salesforce Customers. I'm Doug Wendt, your host. We're going to take just 1 minute and let folks filter in here, and then we will get started in just a moment. So if you're one of those early birds who joined as soon as we turned the webinar on, go ahead and get your fresh cup of coffee, and then we will begin in just a minute. Thank you. So we're going to go ahead and get started. I want to welcome everyone to today's webinar. Again, the topic is why HubSpot provides the best marketing solution for Salesforce customers. So to unpack that question, and in that context, I have asked two esteemed professionals to join us today. I'm very excited to welcome them both to the program. The first guest today is Mridula Gadgil. Mridula is a senior solutions engineer with HubSpot. So she works for the mothership up in Boston, or technically in Cambridge. Mridula, welcome to the program today.
Yeah, thanks so much, Doug. Super excited to be here.
Absolutely. We are excited to have you. And one of the things that we're doing is we're sharing a fun fact about each member of our panel today. So you have a fun fact. You want to take a moment and share it?
I do. Yeah. For the last 3 years, I've been a Zumba instructor. So every Monday and Friday night, I'm over at the gym teaching some Zumba classes, if anybody else has participated in those.
That is spectacular. Awesome. Thank you so much. We're excited to have you. And thanks for making time to join us today. Also joining us today is Bryce Bradshaw. Bryce is a HubSpot solutions specialist here with Wendt Partners. We love having Bryce on our team, and he is just so focused on helping clients achieve success with HubSpot. And I think one of the big reasons for that, Bryce, is you're so passionate about what this platform can do for your clients. So we welcome you, Bryce. How are you doing today?
Thanks, Doug. Doing well. Welcome, everyone. I know the next thing on the queue is a fun fact as well, so I'll share a little bit. I used to volunteer a lot within the Boys and Girls Club of America, so used to help out in charities, a lot of fun events. Won't get into too much on that, but a lot of fun.
Bryce, thank you so much. Great to have you here. And again, I'm Doug Wendt. I'm the President and Chief Growth Officer here at Wendt Partners. We are a HubSpot Elite Solutions partner based here in New York City. The colleagues joining me are coming from the Boston area in Mridula's case, and from the great sunny state of Florida in Bryce's case. So we've got the entire East Coast pretty much covered, and we're excited to dig in today. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the question at hand and why we're having this discussion. And then we're going to ask Bryce to zero in on a couple of the key things that he thinks are most unique and most powerful about HubSpot's approach to marketing automation. And then Mridula is going to do a deep dive and show us some of the amazing things that are possible in a HubSpot Salesforce hybrid integrated environment. So we're really going to capture everything from soup to nuts today, from the why to the how to the what can I do to make this happen. So again, thank you for joining us, and let's get started. So I'm going to take kind of question number one, which is sort of why. Why would a company look at a solution like HubSpot if they are already committed to the Salesforce platform and Salesforce environment? And I'm going to answer that by first pointing out that I've been around a little while. I've been in this business since Act for DOS. Those of you who are wondering what DOS is, you can look it up on Wikipedia and report back later. But I've been around a little while, and I remember when Salesforce.com was founded in 1999. And I think that's an important point. Every technology has its golden age, and every technology runs into problems over time as people build different approaches and different directions on that platform. And so one thing that's really important when you're looking at your customer experience technology, which is, in my view, customer experience platform, we're talking about your sales and CRM, we're talking about your marketing automation, we're talking about your service automation and customer experience follow-up. All things that are available in both HubSpot's platform and Salesforce's platform. But the question is, what are you really getting in that platform? And so this comes to a really important divergence in how companies approach the software industry. And I think it's really important to understand this. The fastest and sometimes most financially rewarding, often most financially rewarding way to build a software company is to build one product and then acquire all the others. You've got, the idea is, hey, these people over here are building a great field service automation platform. Let's go buy their field service automation platform. And then we've got this world-class technology that was developed by people who are experts in that thing. And then we need live chat. Let's go get this live chat platform built by people who are experts in that great thing. On paper, sounds awesome, right? You get best of breed or best in class or whatever version of the best of phrase the folks at Gartner and G2 want to use this week, because they like that kind of language, and they have quadrants and charts and graphs till the cows come home about who's the best of what and the best in such and such. The problem is, just because it looks great doesn't mean it works great. And at the end of the day, the more technologies you have at the table that were built by different people, the harder it is to make them work together effectively. Now, we could have a whole discussion about why we're kind of passionate about the idea of HubSpot being your system of record, your single platform for the entire customer experience. That is not the focus today, but it is important to understand, because we're about to discuss why it makes more sense for you as a Salesforce CRM customer to look to HubSpot for your marketing automation. And part of the answer is in exactly what I just shared. When you're in the Salesforce ecosystem, you're in an ecosystem of literally 72 different products that have been acquired over the last 20 plus years since 1999. No company, I think, in the space has acquired more other companies and more other products than Salesforce. It's a point of pride for them, how much they invest in acquisitions, which is awesome and sounds great. But what it also means is that 72 different groups of developers develop those 72 different products. And trying to weave that together is a nightmare. So what does that have to do with today if we're not arguing today about, making HubSpot your single platform? After all, presumably you're here because you're a Salesforce customer. Okay, here's the point. The point is, in an environment in which the Salesforce solution is really a group of disparate products, or you can look to another vendor for a disparate product, all of a sudden now the question is, what is the best product regardless? In other words, the playing field is equal. From the HubSpot perspective, all of our technologies are built by one team on one platform, one database, one solution. So it's a different discussion if you're coming from the HubSpot world outward than it is if you're in the Salesforce world. Okay. In the Salesforce world, your native marketing automation solutions boil down primarily to two products. One used to be called ExactTarget. It's now Marketing Cloud. And the other one used to be called Pardot and largely still is, and it's now called Marketing Cloud Account Engagement, because someone in corporate speak department said, we need more words on this, not less. So you have Marketing Cloud, i.e. ExactTarget. You got Marketing Cloud Account Engagement, which is such a mouthful. I don't even know if we could fit that in a webinar title. Okay. So those are your options, both acquired products, both technologies that have been around a long time. So you're not only getting a separate product, you're not getting new, you're getting older technology, and they weren't built originally as part of Salesforce. So even today, even though those acquisitions, the OneNote with Pardot in particular has been around for a while, it's still not really one solution. It's essentially two different products that have been merged. And, we've tried to do some arc welding here and maybe a little zip taping over here and a little baling wire, and it works okay, but it's not the world-class solution that you thought you were getting. So that is why a very high percentage of our clients who have Salesforce and come to HubSpot for marketing automation already tried a Salesforce marketing product. At least half of our clients at Wendt Partners who come over with the Salesforce CRM into the HubSpot marketing automation world have already tried and thrown up their hands at a Salesforce-based solution. They are ready for something better. And so what I'm excited to share and what you're going to see over the course of the rest of this hour is that HubSpot literally has built the best marketing automation solution for Salesforce customers. I know that sounds kind of silly. It seems like I'm turning logic upside down and backwards, but I'm not. It's a fact. We're going to show it. We're going to prove it. You're going to believe it. Okay. Now, one other important thing to understand, because again, I'm talking not only to the marketing users and not only to the technologists, but also to the business decision makers. So the business decision makers are always thinking, okay, but how's this really going to work? So here's what's important to know. A little bit of a backstory here. HubSpot started, as many of you know, as a marketing automation solution company. For the first decade of HubSpot's existence, it was primarily built, designed, and optimized as a solution to provide marketing automation to Salesforce customers, because Salesforce didn't have a strong solution in that space. Still don't think they have a strong solution in that space. Okay. But the bottom line is HubSpot has been optimized for the Salesforce environment since day one. Point number two for the business decision makers in the room, guess what that means? It means that even though Salesforce and HubSpot are head-to-head competitors every day in the open marketplace, okay, we all know that nobody wants to cause damage to a cash cow. The reality is Salesforce, it's important to them that the integration between Salesforce and HubSpot be world-class. It's important to HubSpot. So one of the things Pardot is going to show you is just how much is being invested continually in what is arguably and largely recognized by third-party assessments as by far the most advanced native integration available today. And that is the native integration between HubSpot Marketing Hub and Salesforce CRM. So I know I shared a whole bunch of business, a little bit of history, a little bit of tech. I wanted to pop up with a slide showing you Salesforce.com in 1999 because it's actually on their website. Here's the bottom line. Today, we're focused on one question. As a Salesforce customer for their core CRM solution, what is the best way possible for you to build the kind of marketing automation solution that you've been envisioning and have never quite figured out how to reach? And that is what we're here to discuss. So with that, I'm going to ask Bryce to chime in a little bit here. Bryce, you've been around the marketing automation world a lot. You've looked at a lot of different systems. You've worked with a lot of different systems, and you've worked with many, many clients. I'm curious to kind of kick off the conversation. What is your sense of 2 or 3 of the biggest pain points that clients come to HubSpot with when it comes to marketing automation in general?
Yeah, I would say having a single source of truth is one. To your point, a lot of fragmented systems in Marketo, Salesforce, Pardot, really kind of using those in conjunction with a CRM still feel pretty fragmented. So having a system where you're tying all your different lead channels, your different marketing channels. I spent 6 years in the marketing world developing marketing strategies. And from that side, it's always a nightmare saying, well, where did things come from? What points did they come from? Where these conversions happen? Where did the top of the funnel start? So I would say that's number one, is really having just a single lens of saying what's entering the top of the funnel so I can pass that cleanly off to sales is the top. I would say the second is really the sophistication, the user friendliness of the system. So I would say it's a lot of times teams feel like making changes in the automation space can feel like a rocket science or feel like they have to know some high Q code. So I like to say, which is not my world. I'm not a coder. Almost failed that class in college. Not my neck of the woods, but you can accomplish a ton on that portion in terms of automation with very user-friendly tools from HubSpot. And then I think just the third is just the features. Since it's all built in-house, there are a lot of features that a lot of times clients come to me over or come to us and ask questions in terms of really what the capabilities are within the HubSpot ecosystem that currently doesn't exist in Salesforce and doesn't bridge from other platforms. So I'd probably say those 3 would round out the most common ones.
Awesome. Thank you, Bryce. Mrdula, you're on the front lines every day developing and presenting potential solutions and solution architectures to different clients and prospects. What are your thoughts on this topic? What are you seeing as the issues that are just making people's heads spin and giving them migraines when it comes to marketing automation and hitting the goal that really that's all about?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that I really enjoy the context that you provided about the history of the Salesforce integration and really how it came to be. And you were spot on saying that it's for folks who want that best in class marketing solution, but they're using Salesforce CRM and they need some way to make those 2 platforms compatible. So fun fact, HubSpot itself actually used this integration before we developed our own CRM. So it's something that we've had almost a decade to really let mature, create developments to. We have firsthand experience using it for our own business. So it's something we've invested a great deal of time and effort into. And I am going to share a couple of product roadmap updates today. So we're continually investing in that solution. Yeah. So it's something that,
so stick around to the end, folks. We're saving the best for last.
That's right. So this is something, I'm presenting to customers on an almost weekly basis. Really powerful integration, always developing. So I'm excited to show that today.
Awesome. Thank you. Bryce, I know you wanted to dig in a little bit and show us some of the things that you think really set the HubSpot Marketing Hub solution apart, both in your own experience and that of your clients. Let's take a look and talk about some of the things that, to Merdula's point, achieve two objectives that often people think are hard to achieve at the same time. One is best in class, and the other is easy to use. If we can create that bullseye, now we're really making things happen.
Yep, absolutely. So, and to that point, I know I could spend probably a week talking through HubSpot features. So I'm going to kind of narrow the Marketing Hub features down to a couple that I think are really impactful for today and kind of answer those questions. So the first is going to be surrounding campaigns. So campaigns is a feature that HubSpot continues to build out and add more robust functionality around. But kind of speaking to the first point brought up, which is a number one question, is I want to see really a single lens of everything, all my different channels flowing in for a campaign. So when you think of running, paid ads or social media posts, running blogs on your website, like how does all that traffic stack into one campaign during a set time period or just across the board? So we're going to first look at the campaign feature inside of HubSpot. I'll walk through a little bit on that front next. The other side of this will be on the workflow side. So I want to go through a couple really practical common ways that I think HubSpot automation is really making life easier for marketers and really able to bridge that gap before I turn it over to Merdula on the sales side, which will really bridge that nicely. So we'll dive in first on the campaign side. So if you're under the Marketing Hub and you're under campaigns inside of HubSpot, this is really what we would call kind of your standard campaign dashboard. So there are ways that we can filter this in terms of date range. I won't get into all of that quite yet. But what this allows us to do is set parameters in terms of what our campaign goals are, what sort of budget we have for the campaign, who the audience is, all that great background in terms of our campaign structure. But the real kind of meat and potatoes of what the campaign feature allows us to do within HubSpot is add all of our different channels into one single campaign source. So if you imagine having all the blogs, marketing emails going out, content that all relates to this specific campaign or this pitch for a time period, you can track all that engagement back into a single, I would say, really dashboard and lens of all the activity happening there. So that being said, this is just an example of a webinar event, just to kind of showcase how this data would really be demonstrated on a dashboard here. And this can all be added into your reports or added to a dashboard directly in the reports section as well. So I always want to mention that.
Bryce, I just wanted to point out for those who haven't necessarily seen the HubSpot screen before, all of these cases where you see the teal colored text like closed deals, influence contacts, those are all clickable hyperlinks. So one thing a lot of people don't realize is that HubSpot was built with what we used to call infinite drill down. So natively, without having to run a report or build a dashboard or do any work at all, in most, if not every screen of HubSpot, you have multiple points where you can just say, hey, you know what? Let me take a look at this. Let me dig deeper. And you can keep digging and digging and digging all the way until you're back at an individual contact, an individual deal, an individual asset, et cetera.
Yep, great point there. And in terms of the assets that you just touched on and ways like the different channels and content that you want to plug into a campaign, I'm going to showcase some of those, which continues to grow, which is awesome. So if you click the add assets option up in the top right within the campaign feature, you'll be able to see the different buckets of content and items that you can really associate to a campaign. So this just makes reporting back on conversions, influence contacts that already exist in your database, but maybe clicked some of the links, filled out a form, then an opportunity was opened up. It makes that connection and that breadcrumb trail much easier to follow. And from there to that point, you can add in, as you can see here, ad campaigns, which I don't have any on this demo portal right now, but you could add in. This is kind of I would say a big, I would say pain point for most marketers is, so I have my PPC campaigns coming through. I want to be able to see all this data in one place. So I'm not going to Google AdWords, then back to a HubSpot dashboard or a Salesforce, dashboard, crossing that data up with who converted on a form, which you're probably using a different form system. This makes it very concise and very easy to push all that PPC data directly into HubSpot. So you have that flowing in, and you can see where those conversions and web sessions are happening. But you'll see a number of different items here. It gets much more creative as you go along. So in terms of pushing in your core channels like website sessions, blog posts that are related to this campaign, you can add things such as smart CTAs, which I won't get into too much. I know I could spend an hour just on CTAs and how you might use them. But CTAs, you can start to add those, and it's just as easy as it looks here. You just go through, check these off, and it's going to stack all the engagement to these CTAs back to this campaign. So when you create these, even if you have them embedded on your own website, not on a HubSpot landing page, still going to track those web sessions, those clicks back to HubSpot, which is awesome. I won't go through all of these, but as you can see here, I've had some recent requests and different situations where maybe you go to trade shows, you have static lists that need to be imported in. You can even add direct contact lists to a campaign. So for things that are offline, such as trade shows or dinner events, something like that, and you really want to tally these to your marketing leads and then see how they progress from there and what opportunities come from them, you can really start to leverage that with static contact lists as well, or lead lists. So a lot more happening here, even marketing events, but I don't want to drag too much time out on campaigns from this side for the asset portion.
I just want to focus real quick, Bryce. You just want to pull that screen back up. There's just one thing I want people to understand, because I think this often gets lost. I know when we do a lot of migrations of clients from other enterprise class marketing automation platforms, often we're not just migrating them from that platform. They're doing multiple websites or microsites in WordPress. They're doing forms in a form builder platform. They've got call to actions that were custom built and custom coded in HTML. They've got a blog that maybe is sitting on this subdomain over here in a different builder tool. Landing pages, they're doing 58,000 different things in about as many pieces of software. And then what the marketing automation system is doing is really just picking and plucking and looking at it in one place. That's not what's happening here in HubSpot. What's happening here in HubSpot is you're actually able to do all these things. So you're not just tracking ad campaigns, you're creating and managing them in HubSpot. You're not just tracking and making a note, through code snippets of what forms you've got out there. You're actually building them in HubSpot. Now, granted, you don't have to. Just like with social posts, you can do them completely on HubSpot. Sometimes a client has a legacy social management tool that they want to keep using for whatever reason. But really, 99% of the time, they end up having a double win. First of all, they come to a platform that's much easier to use. And second of all, they end up realizing that they're finally doing the marketing in the marketing automation platform. I know it sounds like rocket science, but it's actually possible. So yes, all of these are things that Bryce is teaching clients how to do inside HubSpot. Thanks, Bryce.
Yeah, no, that's a great call out. Sometimes I get too much into the tracking and availability, but really call out that it really does. This is going to limit your MarTech stack by, tenfold. And just kind of everything can be worked out of HubSpot entirely. And in every single case, you're really going to find the functionality be usually more superior than anything else in the outside world. So in the third party world. So
nailed it.
Cool. Next up. So any other thoughts, anything else you want to add, Doug, for campaigns?
I think you hit some really powerful points here. Again, I'll just conclude my thoughts on this by pointing out that the reporting and the analysis, you can go to the reporting section of HubSpot. You can look at it on a dashboard. We've got 100 analytics reports or something like that that come in the platform, and you can create tons of others. But at the same time, you don't actually have to go there to do that. You're getting baseline analytics and data right here where you're working with it every day. That's something that I think HubSpot does brilliantly well. As Bryce shows you other areas of the system, you're going to see, my gosh, my core analytics data is just showing up right in front of me. So I instantly have a sense of what's going on. I don't have to go hunting in a different part of the system to pull that together. Yep.
Great point. And to that thought there, I'm going to get into workflows a little bit because I know that's where you're probably going to get a ton of value in terms of just seeing the types of really firepower that HubSpot offers on that front from an automation standpoint. But just to cover some of those elements that we just spoke on, really everything on that asset list can be developed directly in HubSpot. So whether you're connecting ad channels, marketing emails, landing pages, very user-friendly, very easy with the drag and drop editors within HubSpot and custom modules. It's awesome on that front. Scheduling social, can usually get rid of Buffer, Sprout, or one of those from there, just to make your process a little bit more streamlined there and a little bit more cost effective. And then you do have, of course, campaigns, which we just talked about, and kind of tying all of these marketing features together. And that's kind of where I would conclude that side. So campaigns, huge feature, a lot going on there, and it's only just starting. So moving over to workflows. So I'm going to switch gears here. Let's see.
And I describe workflows as the secret sauce, right? If campaigns gives you like that architecture of the building, and then we have all the marketing tools where you're actually doing the construction, workflows is the secret sauce that turns it from just a building into a marvelous and amazing place where you can get anywhere you need to get to as efficiently as possible. And a lot of it just happens. So really excited that Bryce is going to dig into workflows. Let's take a look, my friend.
Yeah. So first place we're going to go is actually looking at, we're going to look at a couple different workflows, but the first one, I want to showcase what I would categorize as some data cleanup or data organization, that type of automation. So oftentimes when you're looking at Salesforce data, it's usually pretty old, or you have a ton of contacts in there and sometimes duplicates. Sometimes you have, a ton of job titles, but you don't really have them kind of bucketed out by list. So it's hard to really narrow down what kind of personas you have in there. So the first one we're actually going to look at is a persona mapping workflow. So this is a pretty simplified workflow, but I find this to be instrumental across every organization, regardless of how big you are or how advanced. It's always great to have this at the whim in terms of segmenting your list by job role. So where we're going to start, the first, in terms of persona mapping, this is your general structure for those who haven't seen a workflow inside of HubSpot. The first box here is really what we would call our enrollment trigger in this workflow. So as long as this is true, then the contacts go through this workflow and meet the next criteria or the next conditions and actions. So that being said, in order to do some persona mapping, we would definitely need a job title in order to know who they are or really what persona they fall into. Sometimes you'll blend job titles with industry in some cases to really kind of find that middle ground, depending on how your company works. But I'll just keep it really simple for this example. So the first trigger is we have to know a job title. So if, let's say we're syncing to Salesforce right now, we have all these contacts, a lot of job titles, a lot of miscellaneous ones. People have put, SR for senior, written out, a lot of different descriptions and ways we put that together. Let's say we want to start to bucket these into some really clean lists for nurtures, which we'll go to next. This is the starting point. So we're going to set the job title as our trigger. So we have to know that they have a job title in order to enter this funnel. Then from here, I put a couple branches here, what we would call an if-then branch, which pretty much just, if you imagine if-then logic, it's just if this is true about the contact. So in this case, if the job title is equal to any of these, then the next branch would be ultimately true, and then you set your action on that branch. So it's pretty much just some simple if-then logic. Just to showcase that a little lower. So what I've done is built out if-then logic for just some core personas. I wouldn't say that these are in any particular order, just wanted to showcase this as an example. So what I've done is build out 3 key personas based off job roles and job titles that we have on them. So what this allows you to do is ultimately drop in all the titles. Let's say my first branch is for IT. In your scenario, it might be finance, might be ownership, might be something in engineering, could be anything in terms of your customer personas, but you would name that. And then you want to identify what the job titles are that fall under this broader persona group here. So for IT Ian, I have CTO, IT director, IT manager. I won't go through all these, but you would list out all the common job titles where you might have, I would say a pretty good volume in those cases. And if you go through and add all of them, that's amazing as well. But you start to load those in, and similar for your other personas. For C-suite Candace in this example, or manufacturer Mark, I've got titles associated to them in each of these branches. And then as we move forward, once you have those titles assigned by each of the branches, then you can set the contact property persona to that related, I would say that related persona name. So pretty much it branches and kind of casts a wide net for all the titles that fall into a certain persona grouping. And then the workflow is going to do all this for you so that as you build lists out, you don't have to go into the contact list and add all these titles every time or add in new ones. You can start to really just leverage the automation that's going to do the heavy lifting for you and do all the assignments for those contacts. So this is a pretty common one, very useful on that end. And then if there's any other thoughts you want to add to that, Doug, before I go into the nurtures?
I just think it's really important to note something that you've done here, which is you've done the work of maybe 5 workflows in one, both through the if-then branching and through the first-then logic. So we have both sequential and simultaneous actions being taken by the HubSpot engine. And when I told everyone, look, this is the secret sauce, I wasn't kidding.
Yep, love it. Cool. So let's say this is our first starting point. This is pretty common. So now we have some list segmentation, right? We've imported our database and synced it from Salesforce. Now we've got some good context to what contacts we have in here and what sort of nurture campaigns we want to run. Now let's go look at how we might run one of those. So I'm going to showcase an email nurture example. So we just talked about ITN, right? In terms of building out all the titles around ITN. Now I've created a email nurture example based off the persona ITN and ensuring that their lifecycle stage, which is another key part I'll talk about here in a second, is any of lead. Which the lifecycle stage, as you would imagine, you probably don't want to send email nurtures to customers or to maybe somebody the sales team is already working with. You want to typically send your nurtures out to, of course, somebody who's, I would say, generally pretty cold, or somebody you're trying to warm up to get a sales call or booking or meeting link on the books next. So that being said, I've set my trigger up here as far as the lifecycle stage and the persona that we want for this nurture. I typically put a little bit of a delay in here just so everybody, in case somebody updates a persona wrong or a title wrong and they go, oh crap, I need to change that back or switch things around. That way you just have a little bit of room for error so something doesn't go directly into the workflow if it was miscategorized. So,
by the way, folks, you're getting a free class in best practices while we're at it. This is awesome, Bryce.
Outside of that, in terms of the if-then branching, once you do have your I would say some logic in place. So we've sent the first email. So email number 1 goes out after they get a persona assigned. And you can make this retroactive or moving forward. So I'll get into that a little bit later. But email 1 goes out. I built a little bit of smart logic in here using the same if-then logic. But pretty much what this has done in a high level to catch everyone up is break out 2 different branches. One for contacts that are engaging with the marketing emails. So they might be clicking or applying to the emails. And then one for unengaged that are just maybe getting the emails, but they might be opening, but they're not clicking and they're not replying to anything. So you'll see this tree kind of follow and sue here as these emails keep going out. You'll continue after each one goes out, you'll see an engaged side and an unengaged side. But what I've done, this might be a little bit aggressive for some sales organizations, but always want to give you this is what it could do if you wanted to leverage this full capability. On the engaged side, if they do reply to an email or click a link in the email, you can actually upgrade their lifecycle stage from lead, as we talked about earlier, and move them up to a higher score. So you might say they'd be classified as a marketing qualified lead now, and then assign it to the sales team. And Mardula may get into this a little bit later, but you could assign this directly to Salesforce, create a Salesforce task in here from the HubSpot workflow, which is something that I think a lot of teams don't, at least a lot gets missed on there, that's actually possible. So
just repeat that one more time for those in the back pews.
Yeah, totally. So you can create a Salesforce task from the HubSpot workflow. So anything happening in the marketing engine, you can alert sales, assign it, and notify them and assign a task from that side. So while this one, because I don't have a Salesforce actively plugged in, just as task, this would say in your demo, there's an option. And I'll just showcase this over here. In the plus sign, you would see an option to assign Salesforce task right here. So just a little bit above the normal task. So
absolutely.
Huge feature. It just allows you to really bridge the whole theme for today, allows you to bridge what you're doing in Salesforce, make things even cleaner. And again, they won't have to live in both systems, which is always a question I get. Do I have to live in HubSpot and sales? Does my sales team have to see a link in HubSpot? This is all going to happen. The automation happens from HubSpot, but the sales team doesn't have to leave their current flow in Salesforce, which is beautiful.
Thank you, Bryce. Finish your thought. I'm sorry, brother. Go ahead.
Hey, you're good. That's it. I was going to go through a few more, but what do you got?
Actually, if it's okay, I'm gonna switch tracks and have Merdula pick up right from here, because I think you've got us at this perfect inflection point.
Go.
Which is HubSpot is extraordinarily powerful. It is best in class and easy to use. I think everyone can see these are clean, well-designed screens. They are very clear on how to walk through. Yes, you need instruction. That's why you got folks like Bryce and Merdula here. But the fact is, it's not overwhelming. It's not out of date. It's not impossible to figure out. It's not kludged together. This is clean, well-structured user experience design and database design. And at the same time, and this is really the inflection point where my head just basically exploded. A lot of people say, well, I want to make sure that, Salesforce syncs with HubSpot. We're doing way more than sync in here, folks. We're driving marketing's reach all the way into the sales process. Okay. We are revolutionizing what marketing can achieve to make sales happen, because our automation engine, our workflow engine, our secret sauce actually can create actions in the Salesforce platform that your native Salesforce users are going to experience just like they do everything else. So now you're literally directing their focus, you're directing their day through the power of HubSpot. Merdula, take us forward. Let's take a look at how all this comes together through the power of the integration between these two amazing platforms.
Sounds good. Thanks, Doug. So I love how you emphasize right there that this is all about not just syncing data between two different platforms, but we're actually trying to create that bridge between your marketing folks and your sales folks. How can we have them work together the best as possible? So I'm going to take you a little bit under the hood, show you what that data sync actually looks like, and then kind of tie back into what Bryce was talking about with that connection between your two teams. So I actually set up my Salesforce integration probably in my first month of being at HubSpot. It took me about 5 minutes right from our app ecosystem. Super simple process of logging into your Salesforce and HubSpot portals, making sure they're joined up, and then right from there, you can jump into actually getting it set up. What's super cool about HubSpot is that your Salesforce integration lived right within your settings, so it's easy to find, and then it's going to push as much information to you as possible on the state of your integration. So nothing is more frustrating than knowing that something is off with your data sync, knowing that records aren't updating properly, but not understanding what's actually going on behind the scenes. So one initiative that we've had at HubSpot is to make this integration page as clear as possible, so it can kind of serve as a home base for you to check in on the health of your integration. So first things first, we've got this sync health screen. This is where I can take a look at my API call use and if there's any sync errors that are occurring. So when it comes to those API call limits on the HubSpot end, we don't enforce any limits for this integration, but Salesforce, depending on the tier that you're using, will have a limit. So I'm kept to 15,000 calls a day, and I can see if I'm starting to get to that point, if maybe I need to upgrade on the Salesforce end. And then if there's any sync errors, HubSpot's going to give you a nice detailed overview of exactly what's going on. So let's take a look at some property values. I've got a couple of deals that aren't syncing properly to my Salesforce opportunities because on Salesforce's end, a certain value is required and it's not filled out on my HubSpot deal record. So in just a few seconds, I've correctly pinpointed exactly what's going on with this sync. Now I can edit that particular deal record or make changes on the Salesforce side so that the sync picks up back where we left it.
And it literally is giving you the recommendations right there. Here are your options on how to fix it. No, like error code 47, see manual, right?
Yeah, exactly. Really detailed overview. You don't even have to be a particularly technical user to understand what's gone wrong here, right? And then if we need to export those errors, it's a simple CSV export. You can take that to go as well. Cool. And then moving into sync settings. So one thing that I would emphasize here is that everything is designed to be bi-directional, with the exception of custom objects, which at the moment just sync from Salesforce back to HubSpot. All of the object records and activities are going to sync bi-directionally, so you can rest assured that you've got the appropriate data living in both systems. And in terms of sync frequency, every 15 minutes, we're scanning HubSpot and Salesforce to check for any updates. But that 15-minute scan is really more of a backup. Every time a trigger activity occurs, like a record gets updated or your sales team records an activity, that automatically and instantaneously updates the two platforms. So that 15-minute sync is really just to catch anything that may have fallen through the cracks. So everything's happening in real time. And then it's nice to get familiarized with the deduplication rules as well. So in certain ways, HubSpot and Salesforce are two different platforms. They deduplicate records in different ways. So one thing to note here is that HubSpot's going to deduplicate contacts based on email address. And we have some details for companies and deals as well.
And I just want to go back and point out one thing that you said and just double down on it, which is a lot of times people don't think about the different ways that we drive data from one system to another. And to your point, most of what you're doing in Salesforce or HubSpot is an action. So that action is going to send the data right away through the fact that it's an active data move. But then at the same time, there are passive updates, and those passive updates will be synchronized every 15 minutes. So the vast majority of it's going to happen in virtual real time. But the bottom line is we've got the right approach to addressing both kinds of information transfer in one singular console.
Yeah, exactly. And then we do also take things a step further to give you a little bit more control as to how and what gets synced in terms of your contact. So quick overview of how objects map here. In HubSpot, we have contacts. Salesforce on its end has leads and contacts. Some customers choose to use both leads and contacts. Some just want to do contact to contact sync, but we put the power in your hands so you can decide which specific contacts will actually get synced over to Salesforce. Do we want an inclusion list that people have to be on in order to get synced? When we create a HubSpot contact, will that create a lead or contact on the Salesforce end? And then back in the other direction, when we update leads and contacts in Salesforce, what's meant to happen in HubSpot? So we're giving you that flexibility to really create the contact sync that works best for your business. Yeah.
And just to comment on that, as a person who's been around since Salesforce was invented, I think it's important to point out here that we understand that no two Salesforce customers use Salesforce exactly the same way. Okay. And so recognizing that, HubSpot has literally built a connector that gives the power to you to configure the relationship between the two systems in the way that suits your business and your use case best. So there aren't any just grand assumptions here. Oh, we should just assume that leads, will be merged in with contacts and that's just the way we're going to do it. No, we can decide what to do. We can decide what to do unidirectionally. We can decide what to do bidirectionally. We have the granularity of control over system of record. It's just that this is what well thought out technology looks like. We didn't just build the connector with HubSpot in mind. We built it with Salesforce use cases and Salesforce customer preferences and differences of approach to how they use Salesforce in mind.
Absolutely. That's a great point. And then to get even more granular, you can go beyond the standard property mapping. So we've got HubSpot properties and Salesforce fields to actually create your own field mappings. So here on my screen, you can see all these standard mappings. They came right out of the box. I didn't have to set them up myself, but I can always add additional ones as I create custom fields and properties. So let's say we want to sync up the last activity date for a contact, right? First things first, HubSpot is going to actively point you to the appropriate field. So if something doesn't add up in terms of property type, right? Date picker is not compatible with the Salesforce field type for address. I'm getting this real-time assistance as I'm setting up my mappings, as opposed to creating mappings and then finding out later down the line that something wasn't compatible in terms of the data, right? So I get that help here. Once we have a mapping that looks good, I can then figure out sync rules. So which system will be the source of truth? What do I do if one system has a blank property? Do I use the other one as the source of truth? Is this going to be two-way? It gives you a lot of flexibility in terms of how everything is mapped. So it really puts the power back in your hands, like Doug said. Going into some of those other objects here, our standard objects are contacts, companies, deals. On the Salesforce end, you've got leads and contacts, accounts, and opportunities. So once you get familiarized with that terminology mapping, then you can go crazy here, create custom field mappings. We can also toggle on and off any of these syncs. So if you ever want to temporarily put a pause on something, you have the power to do that as well.
I want to point out here that one of the things that I've learned in conversations with a lot of Salesforce customers when they start this process is it actually forces them to stop and think about how to optimize their Salesforce build. They're like, geez, this is bringing up a good question. We never actually confronted how we want to, manage MQL to SQL selection, or what data we want to move from marketing automation into our core CRM database, or whether we want it to go as a lead or a contact. They never thought about these things before because they never had the power to do it. So from my perspective, not only is this going to create that unified, integrated sales and marketing platform through the power of HubSpot, but in addition, we're actually going to help you through the journey of optimizing how you use Salesforce to boot. It comes along for the ride because working through these questions will help you be a more precise user of your Salesforce platform.
Yeah, definitely. That's a great point. I've had customers that took this as an opportunity to really think about their Salesforce setup. Hey, how can we best work with our marketing teams so that the information they provide us really gets to the right places too? And then actually, just to quickly point out something that's on our roadmap, we're working towards creating data sync between parent and child company relationships as well. So if you have any parent-child accounts in Salesforce, that's coming down the line. You can sync those as well. And then another point where we're actively working on developments is our activity sync. So this has been around for a while, but as HubSpot is adding additional types of activities, we are actually working on syncing them to the appropriate Salesforce activity type. So keep an eye on this page. It's going to see some developments as well, but you can dictate what type of Salesforce task is created based on a specific HubSpot activity. So every single thing that your marketing team works on, that a contact engages in, has a place to live in Salesforce as well.
That's extraordinary. We're literally, we're reaching into Salesforce and handing the Salesforce user what to do and all the necessary context on a silver platter, completely through automation here.
Yeah, for sure. And then just to kind of round out those objects here, we include custom objects as well. The screen that you're seeing for custom objects looks a little bit different aesthetically than the other object screens. This is actually the new layout that we're working towards. We're going to update the other objects. But again, putting power back into your hands. What happens when we create a custom object? Do we take an action in HubSpot? And what is that? The one thing to note here is that custom object sync is currently one way, but a lot of our customers will supplement this by writing some code with our open APIs for custom objects. So you can still get that two-way sync. Just out of the box, it's going to be one way here. So add as many custom objects as required here. HubSpot during onboarding, of course, can help you out with some best practices for syncing those custom objects. So that is the basic under the hood process. I'm going to give you a quick peek into what that actually looks like on the HubSpot and Salesforce end. So within a HubSpot record, we've got all of our contact properties over on the left-hand side, a really comprehensive record of all of my contacts' activities, sales emails, notes, calls, tasks, and more, and then their associations on the right-hand side. On the Salesforce end, anytime I'm updating a property, logging an activity in HubSpot on the marketing end, his record, Chris Kane's in Salesforce, automatically gets updated because those are all trigger events. So right on my activities tab, I can easily see that we've got some upcoming tasks. These were triggered from HubSpot for our sales team in Salesforce. If there's any overdue, those get pushed right to the top. And then most importantly, we have our visual force window. So this was created to be embedded on any of your Salesforce page layouts. Some of our creative customers actually designed code so that you could put this visual force window anywhere you want in Salesforce. So it's definitely flexible. But that's going to give me a quick look at his lead score, what kind of activity we've had with him so far, and then all of the property mappings live down below. This is another place where we're creating some developments. We're creating new page layouts. So we're going to have a Visualforce window that has a lot more activities shown. You can also access your Sales Hub tasks and sales tools if you have sales teams working in both HubSpot and Salesforce. Some cool stuff that we're coming up with there. And what's really nice is that not only can marketing teams trigger tasks for us in Salesforce, but I can actually add folks back into workflows. So there is some permissioning involved here. You might not want your salespeople enrolling folks back into marketing workflows, so you can turn that setting off. But let's say I do want to put him back into, a drip campaign. I can enroll him directly from Salesforce. So again, we're creating that bridge between marketing and sales.
You've really highlighted, I think, a couple things that are worth sort of really putting a specific note on. Number one, what you walked us through, Mardula, really shows the thoroughness of HubSpot's approach to understanding and accommodating how best to get the most out of Salesforce. Again, companies create integrations all day, and most of them are terrible, right? And they do barely anything at all, but boy, they look good by throwing the two logos together and saying, look, we've got an integration. Okay, this is a best in class, constantly evolving, deep and well-structured integration that's not only moving data, it's actually enhancing the user experience of the Salesforce user. We're literally handing the Salesforce user a better user experience in Salesforce through the power of this integration. So it's not just one thing here. It's a collection of tools. It is the integration decision tree and the configuration tools. It is the system logic. It is the fact that you can be building a workflow in HubSpot and trigger an action in Salesforce without having to leave the workflow engine in HubSpot. You don't have to go into the configuration tool or in Salesforce to do that. You can do it right here. And it's the fact that we put a Visualforce window inside your Lightning edition of Salesforce. Now talk about a wraparound, comprehensive approach to not only the user experience, but to the administrator's needs and to the business objectives. No point in doing marketing if at the end of the day, it doesn't move the needle for the sales team. Here, we're literally giving the needle to the sales team in almost a completely automated context, where they need it, when they need it, and how not only they need it, but how best to give it to them. So, Bryce, go ahead. Did you want to add something to that?
No, I was just going to say, I nailed it. Couldn't say it better.
So I think there's another really important thing for us all to think about here when we talk about HubSpot and Salesforce working together. And that is, working with HubSpot will help you change how you think about how to get the most out of Salesforce. And I'll give you an example that actually we're planning to do a whole webinar on just on its own. And that is the fact that a very high percentage of Salesforce customers are using products like Outreach and SalesLoft to essentially provide sales acceleration technology to their Salesforce build. And what we're seeing now is increasingly Salesforce customers are coming to HubSpot Sales Hub to provide that capability. That is a brand new use case that's exploded over the last 18 months as people started to realize, why am I adding a bolt-on to Salesforce when I can use HubSpot to basically drive my Salesforce machine? So I'm talking about people who are still staying with Salesforce as their core account management, account executive, their AM, AE, CRM, but they're looking to HubSpot, Sales Hub and Marketing Hub together to not only generate and nurture those leads, but also to provide acceleration tools to their BDRs, SDRs, and sales team members. That's really what's happening here. We are revolutionizing the Salesforce user's own experience and the power of their own platform through this kind of thoughtful system design and thoughtful approach to creating an awesome user experience. Mardula, I'm just curious, Bryce, same thing. How many product updates do you see from HubSpot in a given week in the product update window right now on average? What are you seeing out there?
If I don't check that folder for a week, I'm left with probably 30 to 40.
Yeah, just going to say,
yep.
At least 20, 30, yeah.
Absolutely. HubSpot has made investing in product enhancement a commitment. I've been in this business literally, like I said, since DOS. I'm a dinosaur, okay? And I remember when we had to take stacks of floppies and ship them to the client site and then install them one at a time on the client server. That's how old I am. But it's also one advantage to that age is I've learned something, which is most software companies really hate to spend money on enhancing the products they already have. They'd much rather talk about the whiz bang, gee whiz new thing. HubSpot is adding so much new and enhanced functionality to the tools you're already going to be using. Okay. What we're talking about with those product updates, that 30 to 40 a week, that's not new products. That's updates and enhancements to existing products. I'm getting responses from customers every week saying, golly, I can't believe all the new enhancements that are coming into the platform. And Mardula, I think you really highlighted that with the Salesforce integration. This is not something that we said, we did it, now let's put it on a shelf. You know, we have a dedicated development team at HubSpot that is enhancing this platform every day of the week, every week, and continuing to make it better. So let's talk about a couple of common questions. I know we're running close on time, so if you in the audience want to pop a question in, just hit the Q&A button, and we'd be happy to address it. You hit that Q&A button at the center bottom of your screen, just type your question and we'll make sure to address it. While we're waiting for some questions from the audience, I've got one that I'm going to just throw right up out there. What are some thoughts that you guys have about how Salesforce customers are kind of changing how they think about Salesforce by working with HubSpot, by utilizing the HubSpot platform? How are we actually helping them get more out of the Salesforce platform?
Yeah,
go for it.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, at least from my perspective, it's I would say a cleaner line in terms of segmentation for leads. Being able to accurately say which, where leads are in the funnel is one key part, because I know a lot of times there's a lot of mess, a lot of madness going on in databases. HubSpot does allow you to really help deduplicate a lot of that too on that side, and then really hand off, whether it's, one thing that's been really common lately is installing some really smart lead scoring systems, which just help say, you have 10,000 leads in your database. Yeah, they all look like leads. They're all tagged as leads, but which ones are engaging with the brand? Which ones are looking at the website? Which ones might have a 10%, 20% higher chance of a BD, or sales rep reaching out? Awesome. And that's the big part from what I've seen.
We've got a question from Brittany. She asked us, HubSpot archive emails. Mardula, you want to take that one?
Yeah, I can tackle this one. So I'm going to assume this is referring to marketing emails. So yes, all of your marketing emails can be archived right within HubSpot. But do let me know if you're referring to one-to-one sales emails, and that I can check in with our product team about.
Yeah, and I'm happy to address the one-to-one sales email question, because that is an important distinction. There are really three ways to send emails, right? There's marketing email, transactional email, which we could have a whole nother conversation about on another day, and sales or one-to-one emails. One-to-one emails, of course, go through your own email system, but assuming that you sent or synced them with HubSpot, they're going to be in the HubSpot database. And in the case of your marketing emails, they're already there. That's where you're creating them, so it's 100% in that case. So yeah, we've got you covered. I know it's 1 o'clock. Wow, did time fly? I want to say thank you to Mardula and thank you to Bryce. I hope you guys have had as much fun as I have. And I want to thank our attendees. This has been a really exciting conversation about how to get more out of Salesforce by partnering with HubSpot for your marketing automation and potentially even more. My thanks again to you both. And thanks again to our audience. Thank you, Mardula, and thank you, Bryce.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Have a great day, everybody.